Let's take you back to our studios in Cape Town. Michelle Craig is standing by to speak to Hanif Hendricks of Jama-ah. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Judy. Thanks very much for that. It's just coming up for 1:45 on this Thursday. It is Sona Day, and we continue with our build-up here at our satellite studios on the Grand Parade, just across from City Hall, where the President will be delivering his 7th State of the Nation address this evening. Here in our studios is Jama-ah's President, Hanif Hendricks, joins us. For a sense, Hanif, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
For a sense of what your expectations are as Jama-ah. We'll get to Johannesburg and your mayorship there in a moment. But what are your expectations?
Look, we are concerned about a few matters, and one is crime and corruption. And we are very concerned that several of the departments in the Department of Justice are lame ducks. One of the lame ducks is the Special Investigating Unit. The funding model for them is, unbelievable. 60% of the funding, they have to invoice. So they do investigation for government departments, and at the end of the investigation, they have to submit an invoice and a report, and after 30 days they get paid. So many of these departments don't pay them. Even the Department of Justice is in arrears of 71 million rand. So if we add up all the amounts, it comes to 1 billion rand. Now, you can't expect a special investigative unit to depend on that revenue to run their operations. So as we speak, in my view, they are like under the water, although they got a good audit, but you know how audits work. Then we have the public protector, who is there to reduce corruption. So you go through with your complaints, and they issue determinations and orders, and that should serve as a deterrent. So if you look at the stats, then obviously the corruption must reduce. And yesterday the public protector, acting public protector, said there's a dramatic rise in corruption. So that means whatever they do, and they do good work, best endeavors, are not serving the purpose. The information regulator, who also plays a very important role, has not done any work for 2 years because there's no funding. So how can you have these departments that is informed by our constitution not having funding to operate? How are we going to fight corruption? So we want to hear from the President if he's going to change the funding model so that the Special Investigating Unit will have funds up front and don't have to invoice and vote and wait for 30 days.
Yeah.
So that is a major issue for us. Another issue for us is that South Africa does not have a family policy. And that's why you have all kinds of marriage acts popping up.
What do you mean by that? South Africa doesn't have a family policy?
Look, a political party, and if they are in control, the government must have a marriage policy. The country, the important aspects of the country is based on the policy of the government. So I just told you that the policy on funding is flawed. So there's no marriage policy, there's no direction, and we find that we have 3 or 4 or 5 marriage acts. How do you expect the courts, to administer that? How do you expect the Department of Home Affairs to have a registration system where they keep a tab on marriages and divorces and so on? And why I'm raising that is that Muslim wives still can't get a marriage certificate.
Right.
And they are considered to be wars and the children to be bastards. Now, you can't have such a situation. So we need a marriage policy, and I have assisted the government with a private member's bill. And the marriage policy of Jama-ah, I suppose the government may have a different policy, is that it must just focus on the ceremony, certain essential elements, that a woman must be present, for example, that there must be witnesses and so on. And then secondly, that they must be issued with a valid South African marriage certificate. And when it comes to consequences of that marriage, that must be sorted out by the Jewish community, by the Hindu community, by the Muslim community, by the Khoi and the San. Government mustn't get involved in ecclesiastical matters.
I want to stop you there, Hanif, because I need to ask you the question that's happening in Johannesburg as well. Thanks very much for outlining some of the main policy highlights for your party. Tapelo Ahmed is the Johannesburg mayor. He's been called a caretaker mayor. He's an ANC-backed mayor as well. What does this mean for coalition politics for your party in the city?
Look, you are wrong. He is not a temporary mayor. He will serve his term. And the reason that 8 political parties threw its weight behind him is that he's got a special skill in that he is one of the best councillors around, and he served as a mayoral committee member with a consultative approach. So he, as a mayor, this will be the first mayor in the history of South Africa. The political parties that gave their numbers, you will look at their manifestos, and in running and governing the city, you will try and meet some of the promises they made to their constituencies. So that is strength. He's been trained 10 years to do that. He's been trained 2 years as a MEC for planning and for governance. He monitored the work of the mayor. 2 mayors, both of them died, and the speakers. One of the speakers he removed because playing the monitoring role, he can see where they mess up, where they don't deliver.
Right.
So he knows what the job of a mayor is, and he will avoid all those pitfalls so they don't remove him, because he had 2 years of extensive training and monitoring and practical implementing his role. So he is well placed for his position. Jama-ah has prepared him. In fact, in 2020, you can go to Johannesburg and you'll see the date on the billboards. We set the fellow for mayor because we felt in 2020 already he had the qualities to be a good mayor. And obviously he's from the township, he's from Soweto, he's a kid from Soweto. And, we are thrilled that the 8 parties have agreed to throw their weight behind him. So it's not the ANC alone. It's 8 political parties, including the EFF, including the Patriotic Front, and some other parties who have confidence in him. So I can't understand why the media is so hostile towards him.
Did you pull him aside after he said he would focus on potholes as his first order of business, given the massive challenges Johannesburg faces in water?
Potholes is a massive challenge. 30,000 potholes. So what has happened is he has quietly negotiated with all 3 tiers of government to give the funding to introduce digital monitoring of potholes and digital reporting of potholes and a fast-tracking potholes, because one of his arguments is that you can't ask people, for example, to pay license fees and to have their cars roadworthy, and for the taxis, a lot of children are killed with school transport if the roads are not secure. And with load shedding, you find that the robots are not working, there is chaos. So while the nation and the media may think that potholes is not a priority, it is a top priority. So he had to be strategic. They were asking him, what are you going to deliver? So what did he have in his pocket? He had the funding, he had the technology, and Jama-ah, I got an award as a pioneer of the internet in 2002. We have other people in the party that is using our knowledge of artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. So that is a big thing for us. So he obviously was asked by the interviewer, what can you expect to deliver? So he said, potholes. He's got the money. He's got all 3 tiers of government. The DA could never get all 3 tiers of government to come to the party. He got them to come to the party.
Hanif Hendricks is the president of Jama-ah, joining us here in studio as we continue with our discussions with various political parties in the build-up to the State of the Nation address this evening. You're with 405. Stay with us. We'll bring you more live coverage from our live position here on the Grand Parade just across the street from City Hall, where the President will be speaking to the nation this evening.